They say never underestimate a man who is ambitious and determined. Ambition is a dangerous thing that can make you do things one would never expect you to do. This is the story of a boy who goes through the aforementioned circumstances. He is ambitious and suppressed. Let's see how he breaks the shackles holding him back. Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we will be going through the 2021 thriller film The White Tiger. It's time to recall. Let's get started, turn on subtitles, and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we see an entrepreneur named Ballroom Hallway emails Chinese premier Wen Jibao, requesting a meeting and relating his life story. He describes the situation around his country in that email. He states his belief that the Indian underclass is trapped in a perpetual state of servitude like chickens in a chicken coop. As he goes on to explain different stuff to him in the email, he starts telling his life story. He writes that he belongs to a small village in India where he used to go to a small school in his village. At his school, no one knew how to write or speak English. Ballroom was the only student at his school who could read and speak English. That is why he was known as the White Tiger at his school. We see that Ballroom lives with his father and old grandmother. Their family funds are organized by his grandmother. She is the one who is responsible for taking care of all the expenses at the house, so she is in charge of the money. Ballroom has always been a talented student. His teachers are well aware that this boy is capable of becoming something big. One day, his teacher tells him that there is a chance he might get selected for a big school in Delhi. He might get a scholarship that will help him complete his studies. However, when his father is unable to pay off the village landlord, the stork, Ballroom is forced by his grandmother to work in the village's tea stall, and he never returns to school. He finds out that his father is suffering from tuberculosis. There is no doctor in the area who can treat him, so his father also dies of TB in a hospital. Now Ballroom has nothing in his life except that tea stall where he works. One day, the stork's son Ashik comes to the village. Ashik is the son of the landlord, the very landlord to whom they have to pay the debt. Ballroom aspires to become a chauffeur for Ashok, who has returned from the United States with his Jackson Heights-raised wife Pinky. Now, there is one thing that he needs to do first. He needs a driver's license. Ballroom has his grandmother sponsor his driving lessons with the promise of sharing his chauffeur's salary. The grandmother agrees because she loves the thought of Ballroom earning more money. Ballroom then goes on to learn how to drive, and he is very determined to become a good driver. After he has learned to drive, he goes to the landlord's house and tells him that he wants to be a chauffeur for Ashik. Ballroom is hired as the Stork family's second driver, but is also given menial tasks to complete and is otherwise mistreated. He is never even treated like a driver, they just treat him like a minor servant. He is made to do many things like cleaning the house, massaging the landlord and his son, and serving them food. He has to do all these things, the things he did not expect or wanted to do being a driver. He had no respect in the house, and they treat him very badly and very harshly. As Ballroom's miserable routine goes on at the landlord's house, we see Pinky, the landlord's daughter-in-law. Pinky is a doctor by profession. She and Ashik fell in love when they were in America, and then they got married. They are currently having some issues with politicians in Delhi, so they decide to go to Delhi. Ashik is actually going to bribe Indian politicians so that his family would avoid paying tax money. Ballroom, wanting to drive for them in Delhi, exposes the secret of the family's primary driver. He is a Muslim. After the primary driver is fired due to the family's stereotypical prejudice against Muslims, when Ballroom goes to Delhi, he realizes that he has been missing out on so much. He comes to a realization that there are many things that he ought to change in himself. One day, when Ballroom is serving tea to a guest, he starts to scratch himself, and Pinky gives him a piece of her mind for being so gross. Ballroom realizes that he needs to start staying neat and clean. He right away goes to the market and buys toothbrushes, toothpaste, and new clothes for himself. He is so annoyed that why was he not told that it is bad manners to scratch yourself in front of someone else? Why was he not told that it is bad to eat so many pans? He starts to think that he has been such an idiot and a gross person all this time. He tries his best to brush his teeth with all the force in his hands, but the stains left by the pans on his teeth do not go away. He now desperately wants to get away from his past. He wants to move on from his past, but he is connected to it in every aspect of his life, so it is not going to be that easy to happen. He just wants to turn his life around instantly, but it does not happen for him. In contrast to other members of their family, Ashik and Pinky generally treat Ballroom with respect and eventually become closer to him, though they still view him as a servant. Everything is going according to plan in Delhi, and then comes Pinky's birthday. That night, Pinky and Ashik go out to celebrate her birthday, and Ashik surprises her. They both get really drunk, and when they are in the car, Ballroom is driving, but as they hit the road, Pinky starts being stubborn that she is going to drive. Ballroom is forced to step aside, and Pinky, who is extremely drunk, ends up killing a child while driving. They are all scared and panicked at the thought that they are going to go to jail. Having no other choice, Ashik calls his father and explains to him the whole scenario. They talk, and the next thing we see, everyone starts to treat Ballroom very kindly. The Stork family coerces Ballroom into signing a confession endorsed by his grandmother. They make him sign some papers on which it is clearly written that Ballroom is the one responsible for this incident, and he is the one who ran over the kid. One of the landlord's men tells him that he visited his grandmother, implying that she will be killed if Ballroom does not sign the papers. Ashik tries to defend Ballroom, saying it is not right to blame everything on the innocent, but he backs down, having no authority over his tyrannical father. This moment hits Ballroom hard. He starts to realize that he feels like he is trapped in a cage, and he wants to get out of that cage. He, however, constantly finds himself unable to get out of that cage. The good thing is that gradually, he starts to realize that he is the one who holds the key to that cage, so if he stays determined and adamant, he is gonna be able to make it out of that cage. Or maybe that cage is already open. Maybe he himself is too reluctant to get out of the cage. He realizes how ordinary people like him have no life. They have no significance and no importance. The kid who died in Pinky's car crash, that case does not even get investigated only because the kid belonged to a poor family. Had he been born into a rich family, the police would have been all over them. They go on to inform Ballroom that he is not going to go to jail because the crime was not reported to the police in the first place. When Ballroom hears the good news, he goes to touch the feet of the landlord, but the landlord kicks him away. Of course, he does that because Ballroom has now done his job, and since the crime was not reported, they do not need to be nice to him anymore. Ballroom is left shaken, and in no doubt that he is completely disposable to the Stork family. Pinky is the only one who feels for Ballroom. She is angry at the behavior of the landlord. She realizes that these people do not even consider their servants human, as they do not even give them the basic respect that any human being deserves. Pinky then leaves Ashok to return to New York. Before she leaves, she gives some money to Ballroom and tries to make him understand that he is the only one who can break out of the cage he is currently in. She also tells him to take care of Ashok in her absence. When Ballroom gives the news of Pinky's departure to Ashok, he starts to slap him, and Ballroom shoves him to the ground, having enough of it. When Pinky is not around, Ballroom tries his best to take care of Ashok in every way possible. Ashok becomes a drunk, and Ballroom tries his best to nurse him back to good health. The two start to bond, but when everyone is around, Ballroom is treated as a servant as he has always been. However, as time goes by, he comes to a realization that it does not matter how much he takes care of Ashok, he is always going to be a servant to this family. Yes, Ballroom realizes that loyal service to Ashok was no guarantee of a comfortable life once his services were no longer needed. Ballroom starts to think that he has to make a decision for himself. He tries to think of a plan, but nothing significant comes to mind. Nothing that would make a vast difference. On the other hand, Ashok and his brothers start to talk about hiring another driver as well. Ballroom gets to know this, and now he is even keener to come up with something that would make his life better. For days, he keeps thinking as to what he should do. Ballroom begins to defraud Ashok with fake invoices while making money on the side by selling the car's petrol and using the car as an unlicensed taxi. Ballroom encounters a series of setbacks. He angers the Stork family when he donates change to a beggar. Ballroom's grandmother unexpectedly sends one of his younger nephews to live with him in order to learn how to become a driver. One day, Ballroom gives a beggar some money and he gets shouted at by the boss, who tells him that this is not his money. He then receives a letter from his grandmother. He goes on to read the letter and finds out that she has found a girl for him and he is going to marry her. It does not sit well with Ballroom because he has been trying to come up with a way to control his own life and not let the others control it, and his grandmother announcing that he has to get married to the girl of her choice is just another realization that he has no control over his life whatsoever. Ballroom comes up with a plan. He breaks a bottle and hides it inside the car. He then sees that Ashok always tends to have a lot of cash on him because he often has to go and see the politicians and bribe them to get his way, so he keeps a big amount of cash on him. Ballroom plans that he is going to kill Ashok, take all the money, and run away. Ballroom now regularly starts to drive Ashok around, who has been bribing the people as he wants them to defeat the great socialist in the upcoming elections. He looks in the bag full of money and realizes that one bag is 4 years of his salary at least. One day, Ballroom gets his chance when Ashok prepares to pay a particularly large bribe. Ballroom has an epiphany on how to escape servitude as the White Tiger. To obtain the bribe money, he drives Ashok. He claims something is wrong with the wheel and that he needs to stop. Then he convinces Ashok to help him, then he goes on to stab him with the bottle multiple times and finally slits his throat to finish him. He gets back inside the car, screams, laughs, and finally smiles when he sees the bag of money. He goes to the train station to flee but gets back for his nephew. He right away goes to Bangalore and Balram uses the knowledge he learned from Ashok to find a way into the business. He starts a taxi service called White Tiger. When Balram has his own business and he himself is the boss of many people, he tries to make sure that he is going to be a better boss than his own former boss, the landlord who used to treat him like animals. So he is always nice to the people working under him. He respects everyone and never lets them feel that they are his servants. Balram takes his nephew with him to Bangalore, then a bubble for large IT companies. He uses a portion of the stolen cash to bribe the police to eliminate taxi service providers for a lack of licenses. Balram starts his own taxi company, thus becoming wealthy himself. He treats his drivers as employees and not as servants. He takes personal and financial responsibility for any incidents caused by them, even employing a sibling of a child killed in an accident caused by a company driver. He sponsors his nephew's education while acknowledging that his remaining family back home may have been killed by the stork's men in retribution. Happy to escape servitude, Balram reveals at the end of the film that he changed his name to Ashok Sharma. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.